and welcome to the 12 Days of Vlogmas, Day 11. Those that are new around here, my name's Rainy and I teach music and I love reading all types of books. Mainly thriller and horror, but I also read fantasy, romance, sci-fi, nonfiction, all the things. So if you're interested in that, please like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps my channel grow. If you have missed a couple of days of Vlogmas, of course I will link that playlist down below. We are currently on day 11 of 12, with the 12th video coming out not on Christmas, but the day after. I got sick for a day and it threw everything off. In today's video, we are going to be tier ranking all 107 books that I have read this year for 2022, which is crazy because last year I only read 32 books, so I'm very proud that I was able to get it to 107 this year. And so in a minute, I'm going to go onto the tier maker app and I'm going to show you how I'm going to be ranking these books, and then we're just going to get into it. I'm not going to be giving synopsises or we'll be here like literally all day, and so it's just going to be like my thoughts, rank it, and move on. So let's get started. Okay, so this is how we are going to be ranking all of these books down here. I have all the vibes, which is like the best of the best, the cream of the crop. Then we have something special. There was something about them that made me not give them 5 stars, but they're still really good in my opinion. We have middle of the road. They're like my 3-star average. Like, will I remember these for like a year from now? Probably not, but I'd still recommend them. Why did I read this? As in, I probably should have DNF'd it. It was just not a good time. Burn it. This is awful. This is garbage. Don't ever read this, please. And DNF, like I actually DNF'd these books. And so we're just going to go. No synopsis. Just go right through. All right. Let's start with Creep by Jennifer Hillier. I have started getting into Jennifer Hillier a lot more this year. I've read about 3 or 4 of her books. This would definitely go into something special. I loved this book. It was a 5-star. It was the first in a series of a duology. And so I'm excited to continue to read it further. Then we have The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. That was a DNF. Didn't even make it 30 pages. Then we had We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. That was also a DNF, tragically. I just think I'm too old to be reading it now. It just didn't hit where it should have for me. We have The Ghost Bride by Young Thi Chu. That was also a DNF. It's crazy. A lot of my DNFs were just like right there in a row. Then we have, I believe this is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. That is just middle of the road to me. I did say that I probably would have enjoyed this more had Peter Swanson from 9 Lives not ruined the whole plot for me, but it just kind of landed in middle of the road. We have The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, and I didn't understand what was going on in this. I only read it to read What Moves the Dead, so I'm just going to kind of put why did I read this, because I did not have a fun time reading it. It was not a fun time at all. Then we have Confessions by Kanae Minato, and I would say that this is something special. I had such a great time with this book. It was really cool, all of the different perspectives. I loved this Korean, like, murder mystery-esque book. Then we go to Where They Found Her by Kimberly McCreight. That was also a DNF from Gabby's Book Troop. I just could not stand that book. It bored me to tears. Then we have Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire, and that definitely gives me all the vibes. Like, that is an all top tier book. I loved that. I cannot wait to read the rest of this series. I've only read book 1 in the Wayward Children series, and I definitely need to get to more. We have Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes by Karen Slaughter. That is a prequel to Pretty Girls, and I would say it was just kind of middle of the road. It didn't really do anything special to me to the plot. It was just kind of there because, like, to give the girl missing's perspective of, like, how it happened. But it was just kind of for me. We have Sour Candy by Keelan Patrick Burke. That is definitely something special. I thought that was so creepy, so twisted. I felt so bad for the guy in this story. And that little boy is crazy. I do love an evil kid trope for sure. We have A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. And I would put that in middle of the road. And I know that's a little bit controversial. I did enjoy it. And I gave it a 4 stars technically. But like, it just wasn't what I hoped it would be. I did put it in disappointing reads of the year, so it just kind of sits there for me, and I feel good about it. Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. That is definitely an all the vibes type deal. I loved that book. I had such a great time with it. It was in my honorable mentions of this year. It is so good. Karen Slaughter cannot do wrong with that book, in my opinion. Then we get to Every Morning, The Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Frederick Bachman, and that is something special. That touched my heart, considering it being about a man suffering from Alzheimer's, and my grandfather is suffering from Alzheimer's, so it really did hit me with the feels. Then we have The Risk, which is book 1 of the Mind F series, and that is all the vibes. I loved that so very much. I cannot wait to read books 3, 4, and 5, whereas Sidetrack is just something special. The second one didn't hit me nearly as much as the first one. I had a blast with the first one. Not that I didn't enjoy the second one, but it just wasn't as good to me. And we have The Murders of Molly Southbourne, and that one was just kind of middle of the road for me. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't like my favorite thing I've ever read. I like horror novellas, but I don't love everything that I read, but this was still a good time. Babe City by Fonda Lee, you know where you are going. You are going to all of the vibes. I had so much fun with this book. It is my top 4 book of the year. I loved it. It really opened my love for fantasy, and I definitely can't wait to finish that series. We have Any Man by Amber Tamblyn, and that's going to go into something special because that book is about flipping what if men were the victims and women were the rapists in society. And it had a very interesting take on it. And I very much enjoyed it. And I thought it was really powerful in all that it had to say. When we get to Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier, you are going to the top, to all the vibes. You were my number 6 book of the year. I loved this so much. Oh, I cannot have enough amazing things to say about this. Jennifer Hillier is becoming a favorite author for sure. The Body in Question, this is Burn It. I hated this. It was awful. I shouldn't have finished it. I finished it for a book club and I hated it. It's boring. I don't care for it and I'm never going to read it ever again. Okay, so then we have My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. And I forgot that I read this year. That's crazy that I read it this year. I would put this in something special. I really did enjoy this book. I know, like, some people love it and some people hate it. I had a great time with it, and I was not expecting any of the twists and turns that came within this book. Heartstopper is all the vibes. All of them are all the vibes. Like, I'm just going to find the second one and put it there. If I can find the third one, I think I read the third one. Maybe I haven't yet. Well, 1 and 2 are both all the vibes. Those are fantastic. I love them so much. Heartstopper, you have my heart, and the adaptation has my heart as well. Daisy Jones and the Six, honorable mention. All the vibes. I loved this book. So much fun. I love Fleetwood Mac type style stuff. And so this was like the perfect like 60s rock band, like dramatic novel for me. Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry is going to have to go into something special because while I really enjoyed this book, the ending fell completely flat for me. Like it kind of felt like the book ended and there was supposed to be another chapter that's like missing. And I just can't give it all the vibes because of that. Because the ending was just kind of eh. Normal People by Sally Rooney is going into Burn It. I do not understand the relationship between these characters. I don't understand why this is a thing. I cannot appreciate it. I cannot condone it. I'm sorry. No bueno. Goodbye. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Jade War by Fonda Lee is the sequel, and I would put that into something special. That was not nearly as top tier as the first one, but I still had a fantastic time reading it, and I need to get to the third one so I can see how this series is going to wrap up. Then we have Twilight, and it is still all the vibes. It's still top tier. I love Twilight. I don't care who knows it. I'll shout it from the rooftops. That is just my fave, and I just will always love it forever and ever, even if the writing is complete cringe. Charity by Coho was my number 10 top book of the year, so it is definitely going into all the vibes. That woman is crazy. I don't know what drama she's had to go through to write a traumatic novel like that, but I was living for it. Then we have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and I wouldn't burn it. I would more say, why did I read this? Because I'm very sad that I did not enjoy this, and I wish I had because I do like Grady Hendrix, and I loved the Final Girl Support Group, but this did not do it for me, and I'm very sad that it did not do that for me. Then we have Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, and I would definitely say that that is a top tier book. I loved that book. I had so much fun with that book. That book is so fantastical. I cannot wait to get to the second one. The second one is a little intimidating because this one was 800 pages, and I think this next one is like 1,000 pages. I just need to do the dang thing already. We have Sharks in the Time of Saviors, and while I gave it a 4-star, I'm just going to kind of put it in the middle of the road because honestly, I'm not going to remember this book come like a year from now. I had a good time while I was reading it, but it's just not memorable in my opinion. Then we have the Thursday Murder Club, and I think I put this on here because I thought I was going to get to this by the time I filmed this video, and that's a funny haha, I haven't read it yet, so I'm just going to put it in DNF, even though I don't think I would DNF this book, but I didn't actually get to it yet, so okay. Tender is the Flesh is going to go into all the vibes. I love that book. It almost made it to my honorable mentions. That book is crazy and twisted and disturbed, and it is just fantastic. And I just love the whole dystopian society that it presents in it, and it was a great time. We have Night of the Mannequins, and that is Burn It. I'm sorry, but me and Stephen Graham Jones got beef. We do not appreciate one another, and I need to stop reading his stuff so that I can stop putting it in the trash piles in my rankings. But Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark is something special. That was a fantastic KKK, like, dramatic horror, like, society story. I don't even know what to really call this. But I had a blast reading it, and it was creepy and spooky, and it was the best audiobook I've ever listened to, in my life. Cirque Berserk by Jessica Guess, and that would go into something special. I had a great time with that book. I thought it was super fun. It was my first technical extreme horror, and I realized that I could handle it. And I really love carnival type settings for books, especially like slasher novels. Like, I just think that is where it hits. Then we have Temper by Lane Fargo, and I would also put this into something special. So I really loved this book, and I thought it was a great time. I didn't love it as much as They Never Learn, which you'll see in just a minute, but it was really good, and I thought it was very dramatic, and it's about actors, and I was an actor when I was in high school, so it hit very close to home for me. Know My Name by Chanel Miller, that is something special. That is a fantastic memoir. I thought it was beautiful. And the stuff that she went through, the sexual assault and all that, it is just fantastic. And I will always remember this book. It is a fantastic book. In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife by Miss Ashley Winstead. Is that something special, or is it all the vibes? Honestly, I love this book. It's going into all the vibes. Even though it wasn't an honorable mention, because the other book of hers, The Last Housewife, I enjoyed more. But this was just camp. Like, this was your classic, like, campy thriller about a bunch of friends. One of them dies, and then later they're trying to figure out who actually did it. And I had so much fun with it. It was a blast. Super sorority, drama-esque filled. It was fun. They Never Learn by Lane Fargo was an honorable mention for this year, so of course it's going to go into all of the vibes. I love that good for her energy, that sapphic romance, like Miss Clark could kill anybody she wants, and I'm gonna root for her all the way. Then we had Under the Rainbow by Celia Lasky, which actually really surprised me, and I would put that into something special because I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. It's a YA book, and I only read it for book club, but it really stuck with me, and I'm gonna remember the contents of it for a while because it was like really, really good. I just was very impressed by it. Dear Laura, you know you're going in to burn it. You are just awful. This book makes no sense. It is stupid. It is awful. The main character is dumb as all can be, and I just don't understand how you can be so dumb and doing that shit. I just don't understand. Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. I would kind of put that into middle of the road. I really did enjoy that, and it was my first 4-star or my first book of the year, but it's like not the best thing I've ever read. I still really did enjoy it. I highly recommend it, but it's just kind of in the middle for me. And we get to The Push by Ashley Audrain. That was my number 5 book of the year, so of course it's going to go into all the vibes. I love a good evil child trope. I love The Bad Seed. It's one of my favorite movies. So like that is why this book is fantastic. That's probably my favorite trope, honestly, evil kid. I just love it. I live for it. I love to see it. Bunny is going to go into something special. That was a book that I had to read because I had to know what the hype was, but also what the hate was, because you do either love this or hate it. It is one of those polarizing books, and it very much worked for me. Lost Apothecary, though, is going to go into middle of the road, because I was upset that I didn't enjoy this as much as I had hoped I would. It was just kind of okay for me. It's just there, you know? It's just there. River by Allie Reynolds is more going to go into... I enjoyed this book. And I would say, why did I read this? Because honestly, the ending kind of lost it for me. Because I was very upset at this ending. Like, the character and the murderer, like, it did not make sense. It did not add up. It did not compute. It was not realistic. And, like, it's a realistic book. So that honestly bumped it, like, 2 whole stars for me. So I'm going to have to put that there. Just Like Mother by Anne Helpful is definitely something special. I really, really enjoyed that book. It's another cult book. I love cult books. This one was like a pregnancy one, which is a little scary. But honestly, if a book has a cult in it, I'm probably going to love it. I've just learned that about myself this year. Near the Bone by Christina Henry is definitely all the vibes. I had so much fun with that book. I love a good creature thriller where you never actually see the creature, but it's still creepy, and the atmosphere and the winter setting, like, it was fantastical, and I'm so glad that I got to it. Violet Green Doesn't Care is the only romance that made it to my top of this year, so of course it has to go into all the vibes. I already have the sequel on deck. It was beautiful. It was steamy. It was everything I wanted in a romance and more. Miss Ashley Herring Blake knows how to write a romance. That is for sure. The Stranger in the Mirror by Liv Constantine is wild. It's an amnesia trope book, and it was something special because while it is not a memorable book by any stretch of the imagination, it was a vibe, and it was a ride, and I had so much fun with it, and I'm very glad that I experienced it. Then we have Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, and I'm just going to kind of put that in the middle of the road. I did enjoy that book. I did. I gave it a 4 stars, but it's not my type of book. Like, I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I understand the hype for it, but would I read another book by him? Probably not. Like, he's just not the person for me. People We Meet on Vacation, that is definitely something special. I thought that book was so cute. Poppy and Alex are adorable. I'm not really a fan of the miscommunication trope, which is why I can't put it into all the vibes unless it is done well, but I don't think this was done well. I think it was kind of dumb, the reason they have so much miscommunication. But it is what it is, and it's cute nonetheless. The Made by Nita prose is also going to go into something special because I had a very fun time with this book. I really loved the main character and her neurodivergency, and you couldn't help but feel for her and just like want to help her out in her journey in this murder that she is getting stuck in the middle of. And this was a fun mystery for sure. Survive the Night by Riley Sager. I'm not going to say burn it because I did have fun with it, but I am going to say why did I read this? Because I mean, I know why I read this. I wanted to know why everybody else hated it so much. And it is bad. That ending is bad. Like, I cannot condone that ending. I can't get behind that ending. But I had as much fun as I could possibly have while reading it. Then we have 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. That is also something special. That was a great romance, and I loved the chronic illness representation in the book, and I thought it was very well done. I loved the two main characters. Like, I loved their chemistry, even though they weren't even together that long. I loved the way it was written. I loved the mother-daughter relationship in this book, especially. The daughter read a little older than her age actually is in the book, but that didn't bother me too much. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. That is going into all the vibes. That book was steamy as heck. Oh my gosh, I have not read a steamier book. That book was it. That was the first audiobook I listened to for a steamy book, and I was like, oh crap. And I was listening to it while my husband was home, and it was embarrassing, but it was a good time. Yeah, Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. That is going to go into why did I read this. I'm very sad because I did not enjoy that nearly as much as I was expecting, and it just kind of lost itself to me. It just wasn't it. Night by Kirsten White is going into Burn It. I shouldn't have finished that book. I shouldn't have. It was a Carnival amusement park book, though, and you know how I feel about those. But this one, terrible execution. Missed the mark entirely. Like, would not recommend. These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant, I would put in the middle of the road. Because I did enjoy it, but it was a huge slow burn mystery. It was mismarketed. It is not a thriller by any stretch of the imagination. It is definitely a mystery. A very slow burn mystery with a beautiful payoff at the end. But it's just kind of in the middle for me. Mother Next Door by Kara Laskowski. I'm putting that in something special. That book is crazy fun. I had so much fun with that book. It was just like socialite mommy drama that I just live for. I love a good rich people drama book. I just do. That is another one of my favorites for sure. Then we have Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. I would put this in the middle of the road. I don't read short story collections very often, but this one was like a good, weird, creepy Korean horror one that had some truly disturbing ones in it. I still had a good time with it though. Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, I would put into middle of the road as well. I did enjoy that book, but it was not as enjoying, or I guess I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to get 5 stars because everyone was saying how amazing it is, and I will give it that. Like, the writing is beautiful, but outside of that, like, it wasn't the best story I've ever read. I have The Love Hypothesis, and I'm going to put that into something special. I loved that book. Since I've further read her novels, I know that she literally does the same trope over and over, the he's so big trope, but it worked for me in this one because it was the first one that I read, and I had a great time with it. Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris, that was a DNF, unfortunately. I don't know if I'll read other books by her. It didn't work for me. Then we have Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, and that is middle of the road. That was just a terrible, and then there were none retelling. I wouldn't call it that, but it calls itself that. But the vibes were still there. I'd still recommend it for a fun time. Flicker in the Dark is definitely going into something special. I just read that recently, and I had so much fun with that book. I thought I predicted the plot 50% in. I'm 75% in. And I got it wrong twice. And I figure if you can shock me like that 2 times in this debut, then you are definitely something special for sure. The Golden Couple is definitely going to go into why did I read this? Because this was very subpar for me. This was not a good thriller. It was boring. I couldn't care less for it. And it just did not do it for me. Like, did not do it for me at all. Whereas Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead, there is nothing that can go wrong with these books to me. That is all the vibes. I love that series. I think it is so fantastical. I cannot wait to read the 3rd one that comes out in February. I'm sure it's going to be all the vibes as well. I just love Finlay. She has a place forever solidified into my heart. Then we have Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, and that is going to also make its way up to the tippy top because that book was crazy, and I was not expecting for it to go where it did, and it was disturbing as all get out. Other people's clothes, we know where you're going. Like, you are going to the tippy top. You are the cream de la crop. You can even be spot number 1 if I want to give it to you, because it won't let me change it. Oh, there it is. Because you are just my favorite. You are my baby. You are my golden crown, my shining star. Like, all other books revolve around you. Islands by Delilah Dawson, I'm just going to kind of put into middle of the road. It was way too long, but I did enjoy it. But it just kind of dragged on and on and on, and was way too long. Then we have The Roughest Draft by Emily Wimbley and Austin something. And I'm going to put that into something special because I really loved that romance. Honestly, I loved it a lot. I thought it was really cute. I thought it wasn't very steamy, but it was still such a good romance. Like, I had a fun time with this book. Whereas Every Summer After by Carly Rae, that is going to go all the way up to All the Vibes because I had such a good time with that book. I know I don't particularly love the ending, which is why it's not a 5-star for me. But I really loved the going back in time between when they were younger to like present day. That really worked for me. We have Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and that is going to go into why did I read this, because it just kind of fell flat for me. Actually, no, I'm going to move that to middle of the road because I did enjoy reading it, but it was middle grade, not YA for sure, and it just kind of didn't do too much for me. Whereas An Honest Lie by Taryn Fisher, that is going to go, unfortunately, into why did I read this. Not burn it, because it wasn't that trashy, but I mean, my main character, Rainy, did me dirty. Like, you did not live up to our name. You did not make us great status. Hook, Line, and Sinker is the sequel to What Happened One Summer, and I would put that into something special. That was even steamier than the first book, but I liked the first book more. But I still loved this book. But it was just so steamy. Island by Adrienne McKinty is Burn It. I hated that book. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was awful, and I don't appreciate anything that it had to say. I just don't. Reminders of Him is going to go into something special. If I think about it now, is that book something special? Probably not. But at the time that I read it, I loved it. I had a blast with it. So I'm going to have to put it there just for that reason alone. Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead is also going to go into something special. I had a really great time with that romance. It was fantastic. I loved it. And Ashley Winstead has had a 5-star for me 3 times this year. So she is definitely a favorite author. The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James is going to go into middle of the road for me. Even though I gave that a 4-star, I would put it in the middle because I don't remember what happened in this book. I don't. I remember that I enjoyed it because it was a paranormal type like book, but I don't remember much else. 9 Lives, Goodbye, Burn It, Trash. You are the reason for the season, dude. You know. Children on the Hill, we know where we are going. We are going all the way up to the top. That was my 3rd favorite book of the year. I loved it so much. Frankenstein retelling. I could not talk highly enough about its praises. It is a great book. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, I'm kind of just going to put into middle of the road because I did not enjoy it until I switched to physical and audio because audio alone was not doing it for me. I didn't understand a lick of what I was reading. And I don't want to knock T. Kingfisher entirely because this was a retelling. I need to read more of them before I can make a guess on whether they're going to be an author for me or not. Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley is going to go into middle of the road for me. It did not slap nearly as hard as the guest list. It was just kind of and I didn't really care for any of the characters, and it was just middle of the road for me. Then we have One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose, and that is going to go into all the vibes. I lived for that book. That book was crazy. That book was like the best rich people drama book that I've read this year. I had such a blast with it. Loved that book. Loved it. Blood Sugar by Fletcher Rothschild. You are also moving up. You are my 2nd favorite book of the year. That book is so great. Being inside this like killer's mind, Ruby. Such a fun time. A character study. Awesome, awesome sauce. Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough I would put into something special because I did enjoy that book. It was very good. I just didn't really care for the ending, but I had a great time with it, and I definitely am ready to read Behind Her Eyes because I've heard that if you read that and then the ending of Insomnia makes so much more sense. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. You are moving up into all the vibes. I loved that book. Something about it worked for me. It wasn't really enemies to lovers though. Like, I wouldn't really consider them enemies, but it worked for me nonetheless. Then we have Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier, and that would kind of just go into middle of the road for me. That was not my favorite Jennifer Hillier. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like my favorite, and it was a little bit predictable, but I still had a good time with it. In Pictures by Jason Reichelak was my number 8 book of the year, so it is moving up into all the vibes. I know that book is controversial, but it worked for me. I had a great time with it. I read it in a day. It is a book that I loved. I Kissed Shara Wheeler is just going to kind of go into, why did I read this? It's YA. It wasn't that great. I probably should have DNF'd it. It's just kind of whatever. it was just whatever. House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I have to go into burn it because I hated that book. It was awful. I hated the ending. I thought it was so stupid. And I know that's heated opinion as well, but no. All right, How to Fake It in Hollywood by Ava Wilder. That is going to go into All the Vibes. This one goes into All the Vibes because it was in my honorable mentions, and I thought it was a cute little romance that also touched on grief, which I had not seen before in a romance done well, and so I really appreciated it for what it did. We Need to Do Something. That is going to go into something special. That book was weird. It was creepy. It's about a family trapped in a bathroom during like an apocalypse moment type thing, and crazy shit starts happening. That was a time. Then we have You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Kweke Emezi, and that would go into something special. I understand that, like, the romance in this book is not for everyone, and I'm not saying that it worked for me, but I loved the book, and I thought it was hilarious, and I loved the best friend in it, so it was something special for me. Paul Bearer's Club is a dig fat DNF. I will probably never read anything by Paul Tremblay. Just kidding. I'll probably read The Cabin at the End of the World just so I can see why everyone hates it. But beyond that, it's eh. Ruth Ware's The It Girl is the middle of the road. I just finished that book, and it was just for me. It is the first Ruth Ware I read, and I was not that impressed. Something Wilder by Christina Lauren is not so why did I read this moment, because there was like a thing that happened in the plot, and then all the characters just kind of like moved on from within 5 pages, and that's not something that you would move on from that quickly, and so I was a little shocked by them. And so it knocked it down a couple of stars for me because of that, quite honestly. Last Housewife, you were book number 9, my favorite of the year. You are moving into All the Vibes. Ashley Winston Can Do No Wrong. Look, 2 of her 5 stars. I love her, and I love her. Lies I Tell by Julie Clark is actually also going to go into All the Vibes because I was insanely impressed by this book. I was not expecting to love this book nearly as much as I did. It was a fun time. I thought it was great. It's a con artist book, and I'm very excited to read more from her for sure. Below Zero is the 3rd book in the series, and it was my 2nd favorite, but I'm just going to kind of put it in middle of the road. This is a feminist novella series that Ali Hazelwood wrote, whereas her Stuck With You one would go into Why Did I Read This? Because it felt overdone, and Under One Roof would go into something special because I did really enjoy that one. And then this one was just no. And then this one was in the middle. The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson is going all the way up to All the Vibes. I loved this book. It was so good. A great Carrie retelling. I highly appreciate it and recommend it for sure. Then we have Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. And that's going to go into something special. I had a time with this book. When I found out what the twist was in this, I was shocked. So good. So good. So good. A Place Long Time by Gillian McAllister is going to go into middle of the road. I did enjoy this book, and it did surprise me, but it wasn't my favorite thing I've ever read, but I did appreciate what it did in the end and how it tied everything together, so I did still like it. You're Invited by Amanda J. Atisa. That is going to go into something special because I was not expecting to love that book as much as I did. The end was like, twist, plot, this, that, everything that I was not expecting, and it was crazy. That was a crazy book. Then we have For the Sake Of, the first one by Judith Sonnet, and that is going to go into something special. And the sequel, For the Sake Of, can also go right next to it because those books were insane. I was not expecting to like those as much as I did because I'm not an extreme horror girly, but those did it for me. All Good People Here I am currently in the middle of, so I cannot put this anywhere. So I'm going to put it in DNF as well. I have not DNF'd it. I feel like it's going to end up in middle of the road, but I'm going to stick it here for now. Birth of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn is a middle of the road book for me. I thought I was going to like this a lot more than I did, but then again, I don't know why, because I didn't love A Curious Beginning either. It was just kind of the middle for me, so maybe she's a middle of the road author for me. Maybe I'm not a historical fiction girly. I don't know. Praise by Sarah Kate is going to go into All the Vibes. I loved this book. I finally finished it. It took me 5 million years to read, but I finally finished it. I loved that book. I cannot wait to read the rest of the series. So good. We have Love Light Farms, and that's going to go into something special for me. I'm very glad that I read that. It was a cute little romance. There were a couple of things about it that couldn't make me give it 5 stars, but I still loved it, and I cannot wait to continue on with that series as well. Then we have Monsters Are We by Ren Montgomery, my friend, and that is going to go into All the Vibes. That was an honorable mention. It's probably my favorite book that I've read by them so far. They write in a lot of different genres, and I really do appreciate all that they do. And then last one, Stephen King's It. That is unfortunately a DNF, and it's probably a DNF that is never going to go anywhere else, honestly. So these are all my tiers. So make sure you take a screenshot of this All the Vibes section, and even the Something Special section, because those books are books that I feel are fantastical. Then we have our middle of the road section. It's my Why Did I Read This section, my Burn It, and my DNF. And I'm proud to say that Something Special and the All the Vibes is where most of the books lie. Like, this is pretty good. I'm just saying. So take it for what it is. And that was me tier ranking every single book that I read in 2022. I had so much fun with this. I hope that you were able to take a screenshot of like the best of the best, all the vibes, so that you're able to see books that you should add to your list and then also ones that you should steer clear of. But it's just an opinion. Maybe you loved the books that I hated and vice versa. That's why it is so awesome to be able to read whatever you want and not care what anyone else thinks. All right, I will catch you guys on day 12 of Vlogmas, where we are going to be talking through my 5-star predictions for 2022. Did I read them? Were they 5 stars? You'll have to see. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.